In 2021, a world-leading Stanford neurobiologist made a really unusual choice. He decided to step out of his niche, high-tech lab, and offer his most valuable, cutting-edge research to all of us for free. Now, this wasn't just some generous act. It was a revolution. Today, we're diving deep into the story of Dr. Andrew Huberman and the protocol that's giving millions of people the operator's manual for their own brain.
Just stop and think about that for a second. The implications are huge. A scientist at the absolute top of his game, holding the keys that could unlock fortunes in private industry, decides to just hand them over to the public. This was not a whim. This was a calculated, completely audacious move to basically dismantle an entire industry that was built on vague promises and replace it with hard, verifiable science. This was the moment Dr. Andrew Huberman chose to democratize neuroscience.
And that really is the central question, isn't it? Why? Why would someone at the pinnacle of academic research do something like that? Well, it wasn't just about being generous. It was about solving a massive problem he saw everywhere. People were struggling, really struggling, with focus, with sleep, with anxiety. And what were they being fed? A diet of empty motivational quotes and these abstract life hacks that had absolutely no scientific grounding. Huberman saw a world full of people who owned the most complex machine in the known universe, the human brain, but had never, ever been given the instruction manual.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with that audacious pivot and really dig into what drove it. Then we'll rewind the clock to his surprising origins as more of a rebel than a researcher. After that, we'll explore the core philosophy of his protocol, which is all about mastering your inner biology. Then we'll get to the good stuff, the practical, actionable systems. We'll look at how we completely rewrote the rules of wellness, and we'll wrap it all up with the ultimate takeaway, that your mind is a machine and you are its operator.
All right, Section 1, the professor's audacious pivot. You can think of this as Huberman's direct challenge to all the fluff in the self-help world. He saw this massive gap between proven scientific knowledge on human optimization and the, let's be honest, unsubstantiated advice being sold to the public. So his pivot, his move, was a conscious effort to build a brand new framework, one founded on the unshakable principles of neurobiology.
And this slide just perfectly sums up the problem he was trying to solve. See, people weren't lazy. They were misinformed. They were buying the books, they were listening to the gurus, and they were trying to force change through sheer willpower alone. It's kind of like trying to fix a complex car engine by just standing there and wishing it would run better. Huberman's diagnosis was crystal clear. The real issue was a total lack of systematic knowledge. People were missing the basic instructions for controlling their own energy, their mood, and their focus.
And so this is where he introduced his solution, the Huberman Protocol. And let's be clear, this isn't a philosophy, it's a blueprint. The whole goal is to achieve states of intense focus in what athletes and artists call flow, but the method is pure science. It's about taking incredibly complex research from elite labs at places like Stanford and distilling it into simple, zero-cost, repeatable techniques you can use to consciously manage your own mental and physical state. At the end of the day, this is about engineering your biology, not just inspiring your mind.
But, to really get where the super rigorous scientific approach comes from, we have to go back to a very unexpected place. To understand the scientist, you really have to first understand the rebel. Huberman's methodical approach to the brain wasn't dreamed up in some sterile lab. It was forged in the fire of a pretty chaotic youth and a lot of extreme physical self-experimentation.
Now, this is not your typical backstory for a world-leading Stanford professor, right? Dropping out of high school, facing personal instability. This is the narrative of someone living on the edge. And it was right there, on that edge, skateboarding, surfing, constantly pushing his physical and mental limits, that he had this profound realization. He directly experienced the raw power of fear, of adrenaline, of deep, unwavering focus. The mind-body connection became so real to him, and it lit a fire that drove him back to school with one burning question: how? How does this all actually work? What are the precise biological gears and levers that allow us to turn fear into focus?
And this experience, it became the foundation of his entire worldview. His own journey from chaos to control cemented this core belief. Feelings are subjective, but biology is objective. The scientific method became his ultimate tool, not just for research in a lab, but for life itself. It was the only reliable way to cut through the noise, the only path to creating objective, actionable tools that gave you predictable results. In a way, his own life became the first proof of concept for his entire protocol. So that brings us right to the core philosophy of the protocol. It's not enough to just know the story, you have to get the mindset. This is all about shifting your perspective from being a passenger in your own body to being the pilot,
the person who actually understands the controls.
This quote right here, it says it all. He's really urging us to move beyond these vague ideas like willpower or positive thinking. Huberman's core belief is that real self-mastery comes from using specific behaviors as precise tools to manipulate your brain's internal chemistry. Need more focus? There's a behavioral tool for that. Need to calm down? Like right now? There's a tool for that too. And these aren't just metaphors, they are direct inputs designed to control the output of your nervous system.
Now, holding all of this up is the incredible scientific principle of neuroplasticity. This is a huge cornerstone of his protocol. It's a scientifically proven idea that your brain is not fixed, it's not static. The actions you take, the behaviors you consistently and intentionally repeat, literally alter the physical structure of your brain. They make some neural pathways stronger, like a well-worn path in a forest, while letting others fade away. And what that means is that growth and improvement aren't just psychological ideas. They are tangible, biological events that you have the power to direct.
Okay, but before you start diving into all the advanced tools, Huberman is adamant about mastering the fundamentals. He calls them the foundational four, and they are totally non-negotiable. First up, sleep. It's not just passive rest. It's an active process where your brain is literally power washing itself, clearing out junk and consolidating memories. Without it, everything else falls apart. Second, light exposure, which we're about to see is the master lever for your body's entire clock. Third, movement. It's not just for your muscles. It boosts blood flow to the brain and releases key neurochemicals that are like fertilizer for your brain cells. And fourth, social connection. We are social animals, and positive social bonds are a powerful regulator of our stress systems. You have to master these biological fundamentals first because they provide the stable platform for everything else you want to build.
All right, so we've covered the why. Now let's get into the how. This section is all about moving from philosophy to the simple, powerful, daily systems you can actually use. This is where the blueprint becomes your daily routine.
This is, arguably, the single most important system in the entire protocol, managing your circadian rhythm with light. Think of light as a drug you administer to your brain. So, in the morning, you do want to get actual sunlight in your eyes within about an hour of waking up. This isn't about vitamin D. It's about specific wavelengths of light hitting special cells in your retina. This sends a powerful signal to a tiny spot in your brain that acts as your body's master clock. That signal triggers a healthy spike in cortisol, making you alert and focused. And, this is critical, it sets a 16-hour timer for your brain to release melatonin, the hormone that helps you sleep. Now conversely, in the evening, you don't want to send the wrong signal. Bright overhead lights after 10 p.m. look a lot like daytime sunlight to your brain. It tricks that same master clock into hitting the brakes on melatonin, which totally sabotages your sleep. Controlling this one variable, light, is the most powerful lever you have for managing your daily energy, mood, and focus. Okay, now for the second core habit, a tool for real-time stress management. This is the Physiological Sigh. It might look simple, but it is a scientifically proven, super fast-acting tool for deliberately shifting your nervous system out of stress mode. When you're stressed, you're in fight or flight. This specific breathing pattern hacks that system. The double inhale through the nose fully reinflates the tiny little air sacs in your lungs that collapse under stress. Then, the long extended exhale purges the maximum amount of carbon dioxide. This rapid shift sends a direct signal to your brainstem, which then tells your heart to slow down, shifting you from high alert to calm focus. It is the fastest, most effective way to slam the brakes on your stress response, and you can do it anywhere, anytime.
You know, the widespread adoption of tools just like these has had a massive impact. So, in our next section, let's look at how Huberman's work didn't just add to the conversation on wellness, it fundamentally rewrote the rules and changed the entire game.
This comparison just lays it all out so clearly. It shows the paradigm shift he started. The old way of doing things was built on vague motivation and abstract hacks with little, if any, science to back them up. The Huberman way is the exact opposite. It's built on verifiable data. It gives you systematic protocols, not random hacks. And most importantly, where the old way often had zero scientific credibility, Huberman made scientific rigor the absolute gold standard. If a claim isn't supported by peer-reviewed research, it's out. He single-handedly raised the bar for anyone giving wellness advice.
And this, right here, is his ultimate legacy. For a long time, there was this idea that deep science was just too complex for the general public, that you had to dumb it down. Huberman proved that was totally false. He showed that you can maintain the highest levels of scientific rigor while making the information accessible and actionable for everyone. He translated the complex language of the lab into the universal language of human improvement.
And that brings us to our final section, which really boils down the core message of this entire explainer into one empowering idea. If the mind is a machine, then the Huberman Protocol is its operator's manual.
So what's the bottom line? What should you take away from all this? First, and most importantly, you are not just a passenger. You're the mechanic of your own consciousness. Second, the simplest, most powerful tool you have is light. Control it, morning and night, to manage your energy and sleep. Third, your breath is a direct lever to your nervous system. Use the physiological sigh to downregulate stress in real time. And finally, the biggest takeaway of all, make a commitment to yourself to start replacing the motivational fluff with verifiable biological data.
You know, in the end, it really all comes back to that one audacious decision he made. Dr. Andrew Huberman built his entire legacy not by hoarding knowledge for a select few, but by giving away the instructions to your own brain. He proved, through countless hours of painstaking detail, that mastery over yourself doesn't begin with wishes or willpower. It begins with a clear, systematic mastery over your own biology.
And this is the immutable rule his work leaves us with. Your mind is not a passenger, just helplessly along for the ride of life. It is a machine, the most complex, powerful, and adaptable machine in the entire universe. And it is a machine that you must learn to operate. The tools are now in your hands.